Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. A league that is desperate for attention, a league that is begging to be noticed, a league that's been completely ignored and forgotten over the last couple of weeks. This dump of dumps that can't generate interest based on their on-court product, which mainly consists of airballed free throws and some of the worst pretend basketball imaginable. This league is so bad, they can't even pretend to play well. A league that is struggling to sell tickets. Well, KC, that's not true. The Washington Mythicals sold out their game last night against the New York Equality. Yeah, that's true. The Mythicals did sell out last night, but the game was being played in a community theater. Have you seen the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C.? It's the size of a small office building in downtown Gay, Georgia. A league that has struggled to maintain interest the last 2 weeks while their only attraction has been sidelined with injury. You mean to tell me that league is refusing to provide media credentials? That league is turning the media away from covering pretend basketball? Headline at Outkick. WNBA refuses to grant Outkick media credentials. What is the dump hiding? Maybe there's a logical explanation for this. Maybe the facilities hadn't been properly cleaned. Maybe the golden toilet was out of service from the New York Equality using it throughout the off-season. I mean, you don't want the media having to use the community bathrooms, which the good people at Waste Management call porta potties. Or maybe, just maybe, the WNBA didn't want to give press credentials to a critical media outlet like Outkick. Maybe they didn't want Outkick asking why the league refused to investigate Bob Greiner. You see, the WNBA only wants turd polishers covering their league. They want sympathizers. They want media who will pretend their players are victims of an oppressive system. They also want media who are willing to lie about the product. This league is amazing! Angel Reese is the best basketball player I've ever seen. Did you see how she dribbled the ball between her legs? I've never seen anything like it. Who cares if the ball bounced off her foot and went out of bounds? That out of bounds call was racist. The thing is, the dump isn't doing themselves any favors. There is no such thing as bad publicity, especially with a league that is struggling the last 2 weeks to generate any publicity. If guys like me are critical of the dump, that's okay. I can't tell you how many times I've received emails from people in my audience telling me they gave the WNBA a chance just to see if it was as bad as I say it is. You see how that works, Kat Engelbert? Uncle KC has given you free viewers. Uncle KC has given you free publicity. It's up to you to prove me wrong. Once people from my audience have tuned into your product, my job is done. It's up to the players in the WNBA to prove that I'm wrong for dumping on this turd of a league. The problem is, I'm not wrong, and the WNBA knows I'm not wrong, which is why they're refusing to give press credentials to the guys at Outkick who are also critical of pretend basketball. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Yesterday on the second channel, talked about the potential overexposure of Stephen A. Smith. Although I do admire his work ethic, it's starting to feel like Stephen A might be doing a bit too much. I explain why, and we also discuss Michelle Beadle being outraged because Stephen A essentially stole her time slot on SiriusXM. So click the link in the description, subscribe to the second channel. Also, there's going to be some updates to the backdrop, hopefully this weekend and the last few weeks of June. After next week, I'll be spending the rest of the month in Nashville. Shouldn't be any changes to the upload schedule, hoping the same is true for the quality of the audio. Let me ask you something. It has been almost 2 weeks since Caitlin Clark was sidelined with a quad strain. Now, according to the media, the elevation of pretend basketball has been a group effort. The Roo from Waterloo isn't the only one responsible for elevating this turd. Well, KC, Caitlin Clark's not from Waterloo, she's from Des Moines. Yeah, no shit, asshole. But Roo doesn't rhyme with Des Moines, does it? Outside of groin, there aren't many words that rhyme with Des Moines, and that just doesn't seem appropriate to use with the Great White Hope. But anyway, Katie Roo's been out for 2 weeks. Now, before she was injured, the WNBA was dominating the mainstream. One thing I have always given the WNBA credit for, they know how to provide drama. If you can't generate interest based on the actual product, you gotta come up with other ways to capture attention. The WNBA and its players, they are brilliant at manufacturing drama. But over the last 2 weeks, how often have you heard about the WNBA? Since around Memorial Day weekend, what has been the biggest story in the dump? Outside of Dejanay Carrington accusing a referee of mythical racism, or as she called it, a microaggression. Not to be confused, I guess, with a macroaggression, which I doubt DJ Carrington could define. But outside of that one incident, which received minimal coverage, the WNBA has essentially been ignored. There's been no controversy. There hasn't been as much media coverage. I Googled the WNBA this morning. A lot of the stories, a lot of the articles that came up, they're days old. The only one that really caught my attention was an article from Awful Announcing asking why the WNBA was scheduling games in something called the Commissioner's Cup during the NBA Finals, which I thought was a great question, but I think they should have ended the question after games. It should have read, why is the WNBA scheduling games? Look, I'm saying this purely based on my own perception, but my perception is somewhat educated because I've been talking about the WNBA for years. I was talking about the WNBA before most of the media knew pretend basketball still existed. Ever since Caitlin Clark was injured, there seems to be declining interest in the WNBA. People aren't talking about it as much. It's not dominating headlines in the media. Think about all the major stories this week. Now, this time last year, the WNBA was a focal point in the mainstream. You couldn't go a full week without hearing about pretend basketball, but this week, the WNBA has essentially been ignored. The Commissioner's Cup started. No one cared. Angel Reese has played several games since Caitlin Clark was injured. Have you heard about him? To me, the lack of attention or exposure given to the WNBA in the last couple of weeks in Caitlin Clark's absence, it's really an indictment on the drawing power or complete lack thereof of Angel Reese. Remember this startling revelation from last year where Angel Reese was taking credit for elevating the league? Here's a reminder. Watch for yourself.
People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, like just because of one single game. And just looking at that, like, I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me, too.
People are talking about women's basketball. Where? In the last 2 weeks, Who has been talking about women's basketball? Angel Reese also claimed that she was the reason people were paying attention. Girl, these people aren't watching just because of the white girl. They're watching for me too. I'm Angel Reese. I drive and miss layups. Tomorrow, the Indiana Felines are playing the Chicago Bravado. Now, last month, the demand for tickets was so high, the WNBA decided to move the game out of the Civic Center that the Bravado usually play in over to the United Center. If I remember correctly, I want to say the United Center is the largest or one of the largest arenas in the NBA. It's the house that Michael Jordan built. 3 weeks ago, ticket prices were astronomical. Lower level seats were hundreds of dollars. Upper level seats were over $100. But as of 10:30 this morning, there were tickets selling for $9. My inside sources are telling me if this many tickets remain available by later tonight, the WNBA could be changing the denomination to pesos. People are literally begging to get rid of their seats. The last 2 weeks should be a wake-up call for every player in the WNBA. It should damn sure be a wake-up call for the diva of Dump Divas, Kat Engelbert, who for reasons unknown continues to protect players who can't generate revenue and ostracize the fan base of the one player who's generating all the interest. The WNBA will protect Bob Griner from the media while investigating Caitlin Clark fans. The WNBA will protect Angel Reese while accusing fans in Indiana of mythical racism. These last 2 weeks, this should be a wake-up call. What we have seen the last 2 weeks, that would be the WNBA's ceiling in terms of exposure and interest. The lack of exposure they have received, that would be considered maximum exposure. God forbid, Caitlin Clark sustains a long-term injury. This league will be forgotten. And the irony is, WNBA players would get exactly what they wished for. This league does not want your money. I have heard reports that some WNBA players complain about the demographics of the crowd in Indiana. Basically, there's too many white people. Now, 2 years ago, these same players were complaining because there were no people in the crowd. They are one injury away from returning to that level of irrelevance. If you don't believe me, go look at ratings for Unrivaled. Give me your thoughts on this. Again, all of this was based purely on my perception, but does it feel like the WNBA has faded into the background since Caitlin Clark was injured? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.